Why is it that you're working 12 grueling hours while someone else clocks in for 6 and builds an empire? It feels like a punch to the gut because you're doing everything right, yet you're still falling behind. You've been lied to about what it actually takes to win. You're tired of being tired with nothing to show for, carrying a burden that was never meant to be yours. Every day you spend grinding without a system is just another day you move closer to total burnout. But there is a silent thief stealing your progress, and it's not laziness. It's an outdated method you were forced to adopt. In a few moments, I'm going to reveal the exact wisdom that will save your career and change how you work forever. But first, you need to understand why most people, perhaps even you, are currently acting as a martyr for a struggle that yields no root. There is a specific reason why your massive effort isn't translating into results, and it's hidden within the story of a man who almost lost everything trying to be a hero. Have you ever wondered why the guy sweating for 12 hours under a sun that won't quit is usually the one barely scraping by? It's a bitter pill to swallow, but society has fed us a massive lie. The idea that more pain equals more gain, as if exhaustion were a gold medal. But let's be real, if hard work was the only key, the donkey would be the king of the jungle. Meanwhile, you see someone else working just 4 hours from the shade, building an empire while sipping a cold drink. It feels like an insult, making you want to scream, because it seems so inherently unfair. But here is the secret most people never find. That person isn't lucky. They've simply stopped playing by the broken rules that keep you trapped in an exhausting loop. You're currently swinging your axe at giant trees without ever stopping to sharpen the blade, carrying the weight of a method that was never designed to let you win. What you don't know yet, and what I will reveal in a moment, is that this hustle is actually a mask for a much deeper problem. There is a specific psychological trap that makes you hold on to these heavy, useless stones, and until you learn to identify it, no amount of effort will ever be enough. To see how this trap destroys even the strongest men, we must look at Thomas, a man who thought his bleeding hands were his greatest asset. Let's talk about Thomas, a man who believed that if you weren't hurting, you simply weren't trying hard enough. He was the first soul at the quarry every morning, greeting the sunrise with the heavy thud of his massive sledgehammer. To Thomas, life was a battle of will, and he intended to beat that stubborn stone into submission with pure, raw muscle. He looked at his calloused, bleeding hands as proof of his character, never once questioning if there was a better way. He was proud of his struggle, convinced that his massive output of energy would surely lead to massive wealth. But despite all that noise and fury, the pile of finished stone next to him was depressingly small. Thomas was doing the digital equivalent of what many of you are doing right now, grinding your gears in a job that swallows your soul, thinking hustle is the answer to a stagnant bank account. He was a martyr for a system that didn't care how much he suffered. But here is the part that Thomas couldn't see. His pride was actually a heavy stone he chose to carry every single day, a burden that blinded him to a nearby reality that seemed almost magical. Just a few yards away, another man was achieving 10 times the results with almost zero effort. But what was the invisible tool this man was using that Thomas refused to acknowledge? You're about to see the exact moment Thomas realized his life's work might have been a total mistake. Just a stone's throw away sat Richard, who looked more like he was on a picnic than at a grueling job site. While Thomas was a whirlwind of dust and grunts, Richard spent his first hour just sitting quietly, leaning against a cool rock. He wasn't being lazy. He was conducting a silent symphony of observation, scanning for hidden weaknesses. To a passerby, he looked like he was wasting time, but Richard knew something Thomas didn't, that a single calculated strike beats 1,000 blind swings. When Richard finally stood up, he used a hammer that looked like a toy compared to Thomas's heavy iron. Yet with the grace of a surgeon, he gave the stone a confident ping, and it would yield. He was using a precision system instead of the weight of his own bones, the exact kind of leverage that allows a person to build an empire while others merely survive. By noon, Richard had more money in his pouch and more energy in his tank. It's enough to make your blood boil, isn't it? Seeing someone do less and end up with way more. You might feel that same sting when you see others using automation or secret strategies to zoom past you. But Richard's secret isn't just about the hammer. It's about a specific way of seeing the world that eliminates the weight of the struggle. In just a moment, a crisis will hit the quarry that proves Thomas's hard work is actually his greatest liability. You need to see what happened when the hero of sweat is faced with a task that muscle alone cannot solve. Suddenly, a royal messenger arrived with a task that made the entire quarry hold its breath. A rare, massive slab of white marble had to be split perfectly for the king's palace. For Thomas, this was the moment to prove his worth through the only language he spoke: relentless hustle. He gripped his heaviest sledgehammer, his muscles screaming for a break he refused to grant, and he swung with every ounce of his soul. He didn't look for the grain. He just threw more power at the problem, convinced that volume would force the stone to comply. But the universe doesn't care how hard you're trying if you're hitting the wrong spot with a dull tool. Instead of a clean break, the rare marble let out a sickening crack and shattered into 1,000 useless pieces. Thomas collapsed, his reputation lying in ruins among the rubble of his own making. He had worked himself to the bone just to destroy the very thing he was trying to build. Does that shatter feel familiar? It's the crushing realization that your 80-hour workweeks might be taking you to a dead end faster than you think. You are hitting your head against the same brick wall, and it's not the wall that's going to break first, it's you. But while Thomas sits in the dust of his failure, Richard is walking up to his own slab. What Richard does next is so simple, it's almost offensive, and it reveals a secret about the weight of stone that will change the way you look at your workload forever. Are you ready to see the one-tap secret that Thomas was too blind to see? Thomas watched as Richard walked up to his own slab, looking as cool as a cucumber. Despite the blistering afternoon heat, there was no grand wind-up, just a simple placement of a small, sharp tool. With a single, effortless tap, the massive marble gave way, splitting perfectly like it was made of soft butter. It was a clean, beautiful break that made all of Thomas's agonizing hours look like a complete and utter waste of time. In that moment, the wall of pride Thomas had built around his hard work finally came crashing down. He looked at his shattered marble and then at his own trembling, blood-stained hands with a sense of deep, crushing shame. All the hustle in the world couldn't hide the fact that he was failing, while the lazy guy was winning bigger than ever. It's a tough pill to swallow when you realize your best effort is actually the very thing holding you back. Thomas dropped his hammer, the one he'd treated like a holy relic, and walked over to Richard as a broken student looking for a way out. "I've got 10 times your muscle and 10 times your hours," Thomas croaked. "Yet the stone mocks me while it obeys you." He was finally asking the million-dollar question that every burnt-out worker must face to survive. But what Richard reveals next isn't just a trick of the trade, it's a fundamental shift in how you handle the weight of your life. There is an invisible force, Richard, that makes heavy lifting feel like child's play, and if you don't learn to see it, you'll be trapped in the quarry forever. Are you ready to see the hidden line that changes everything? Richard gestured toward a tiny, almost invisible line running through the heart of the massive marble slab. "You're busy fighting the stone, my friend. I'm simply inviting it to fall apart where it's already weak." It was a revelation that hit Thomas harder than any hammer ever. He had been so obsessed with the weight of his swing that he never once bothered to look for the opening. Thomas realized that a blunt hammer requires the strength of a hero, but it usually creates the mess of a fool. Much like the way you might be kicking the door down in your own life instead of simply using a key. Think of it this way: your sweat is an expensive currency that you're spending far too loosely, Richard whispered. Using a sharp chisel on a natural fissure is the ultimate sharp axe philosophy. If you don't take the time to refine your tool, your muscles and your mind will pay the price. Systems are the levers that allow one person to do the work of 100 without even losing their breath. But here's the dark truth. Most people are too tired to think, and because they are too tired to think, they are forced to work even harder in a cycle that never ends. You've been treating your burnout like a badge of honor, but it's actually a sign that you're hitting the stone in the wrong place. However, Identifying the crack is only the first step. To truly stop being a slave to the grind, you need to understand the 3 specific laws of leverage that Richard used to build his empire. Without these, you're just a glorified hamster on a wheel that's spinning way too fast. Are you ready to see the mechanical secrets of success? Richard leaned back, explaining that a lever is just a system that makes a small push go a long way. Most folks are so proud of their raw muscle that they forget to build a pulley or an automated pipe. If you don't build a mechanism that works for you, you'll spend your whole life working for the mechanism. This is the Fisher principle, identifying the one sweet spot, that 20% of effort that yields 80% of your empire. But here is the real kicker. You simply cannot see those tiny fissures if your eyes are constantly blurred by sweat. Strategic rest isn't being lazy. It is the eye that allows you to spot the leverage point before you ever swing. A rested mind is your sharpest tool, and without it, you're just a blind man swinging a very heavy, very dull iron club. You might think this only applies to a stone quarry, but your stone is a mountain of endless tasks, burnout, and the emotional weight of carrying burdens that aren't even yours. Most people treat their brains like engines running on infinite caffeines, ignoring the loud, flashing warning signs of exhaustion. But what happens when you finally stop fighting the material and start using the natural laws of strategy? Thomas is about to trade his soul-crushing sledgehammer for something far more powerful, but the shift requires a sacrifice most people aren't willing to make. Do you have the courage to see what Thomas had to give up to finally start winning? Thomas didn't just nod and go back to his old ways. He actually tucked his ego away and got to work. He spent the next week studying the grain of the stone like it was a secret map to a hidden treasure. He traded that heavy, soul-crushing sledgehammer for a set of sleek precision wedges and a sturdy steel lead. It's like finally swapping out a manual shovel for a high-powered excavator when you've got a mountain to move. He started measuring twice and striking once, which is a total game changer for anyone used to just winging it. Instead of brute forcing his way through the day, he began setting up systems that did the heavy lifting. He wasn't just working a job, he was designing an outcome with the surgical precision of a true pro. He realized that a well-placed wedge beats a desperate, sweaty prayer to the gods of hard work every single time. But here is the most profound shift. He wasn't just cutting stone. He was reclaiming his time and his health from a life of pointless grind. He realized that hustle culture is just a fancy name for staying busy while your bank account stays remarkably still. But how quickly did this change his reality? You won't believe the miraculous shift in his actual earnings once he stopped fighting the material. In just a moment, I'm going to show you the exact percentage his productivity spiked and the secret to how he did it without working a single extra hour. Within just a single month, the transformation in that quarry was nothing short of a total miracle. Thomas wasn't just getting by, he was producing 40% more finished stone than in his old sledgehammer days. It's wild to think that by doing less physical work, his actual output shot straight through the roof, proving once and for all that the market doesn't pay for your sweat, it pays for the value your systems provide. He was literally pulling in more cash in a week than he used to make in a month of back-breaking toil. While the other guys were still huffing and puffing, Thomas was often seen lounging under a big leafy oak tree, sipping tea and planning his next strategic move. He looked like a king among peasants. His hands were smooth, and for the first time in years, he wasn't perpetually exhausted. He had successfully dropped the weight of the stones that were never his to carry. But Thomas knew this was more than just about splitting stones. It was a universal law for any human endeavor. His success started a quiet revolution, proving that being a workhorse is a one-way ticket to a broken body and a small purse. But here is the question that should be keeping you up at night. How do you identify the fissures in your own chaotic life before you hit a total breaking? I'm about to show you how to take the Stonecutter secret and apply it to your world today. But there's one final master key you're missing to make this transition permanent. Are you still hitting that stone with everything you've got, or are you finally looking for the crack? Most of us are bone tired because we're actually proud of the struggle rather than our actual strategy. It's time to stop wearing your burnout like a medal and start treating your energy like a precious resource. The world will try to convince you that grinding is the only path, but don't fall for that dusty old trap. True wealth flows toward the person who finds the fissure, not the one who makes the most noise at the quarry. Imagine if you stopped swinging that dull axe and spent just 1 hour a day sharpening your systems instead. Whether it's delegating small tasks or automating your workflow, you're just building a better wedge. The heavy lifting belongs to machines and processes, not to your aching back and weary mind. It is okay to put down the sledgehammer. In fact, your future empire depends on you finally letting it go. But identify this. There is one specific stone you are carrying right now, a burden of guilt, expectation, or outdated effort that is keeping you from seeing the crack in your own life. In just a second, I'm going to reveal the exact master wedge that will allow you to drop that weight forever and reclaim your sanity. I've spent years condensing these principles into a roadmap that does the observation for you, so you can stop sweating and start striking. Are you ready to see the tool that makes the hard work of the world obsolete? Look in the mirror today and ask yourself a hard question. Are you actually building an empire, or are you just making a lot of noise? Most people spend their entire lives swinging a dull axe because they're far too busy to stop and sharpen the blade. They mistake their exhaustion for accomplishment. But remember, the market and life itself doesn't pay for your fatigue. It's time to stop being proud of your struggle and start being obsessed with your strategy. But there is a final secret a secret that goes beyond simple work systems. You see, many of the stories you hear here aren't just stories. They reflect the invisible weight you may be carrying every day. Like Thomas, you might be bleeding and exhausted not because you are weak, but because you are holding on to pain, responsibility, and guilt that were never yours to carry. To help you find your own fissure and finally drop the sledgehammer, I created a definitive guide, the ebook, The Weight of Stones That Are Not Yours. This is the manual for those who are ready to let go of the brute force lifestyle, set firm boundaries, and finally live with the lightness of a master strategist. When you grab your copy today through the link in the description or the pinned comment, I'm also including 2 essential leverage tools as bonuses. Bonus 1. Learning to let go. The exact process to identify which stones in your life are yours and which ones you should have dropped years ago. Bonus 2. When saying no is an act of self-love, the master key to protecting your strategic rest and keeping your mind as sharp as Richard's chisel. Don't be the man who dies with a heavy sledgehammer in his hand and an empty pouch at his side. The world belongs to the one who strikes the crack, not the one who sweats the most. Click the link below, reclaim your energy, and let's start building your empire the right way.